Welcome back to the Art Annotations. It's me, Sierra, again, and I'm here to talk to you about one of my favorite artists. Today I want to talk about Elia Mervi. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I have to check. She's an artist that, according to her About page on her website, she was born in Madrid. Then she went from living in The Hague, Amsterdam, to Lisbon, to Sintra, and now she's in South France. And she's just so awesome. I don't remember when I first discovered her work, but I know that her drawings always really have appealed to me, and she just makes a lot of strong statements in her work. It appears that she uses like multimedia to make her drawings, like maybe, pencils, but then also like watercolors. But yeah, her art is fantastic. And so a couple of my favorites of late, I'll share 3, because it's just, I can't reduce it to one. So one thing I like about Elia is that she always, in her captions, she has like a really great story behind almost everything she posts and every painting that she's made. So you're not just looking at the painting, but you're like really getting into why she made it and so on and so forth, or at least the inspiration, which is one of my favorite things anyway, because a lot of times art is easy to, I won't say easy, but you can look at art and like get a feeling from it automatically, or get an idea or think something automatically. Really good art, at least. But when the artist tells you what they were thinking, or they add a story, it just gives you another, perspective of looking at it, and takes your thought process that much deeper. So I'll start with one of her recent posts from April 17th, and it's this lady. She's standing in the clouds above the houses, and then in the caption she says, Elia adds, I believe it's a quote, where she says, "What is necessary after all is only this, solitude, vast inner solitude. To walk inside yourself and meet no one for hours, that is what you must be able to attain. To be solitary as you were when you were a child, when the grown-ups walked around, involved with matters that seemed large and important because they looked so busy, and because you didn't understand the thing that they were doing." And then the quote was from Rainer Maria Rilke, A Letter. And so I guess she was illustrating that. And I thought that was interesting, because right now, during the quarantine time, when I'm taping this, it's a time where you can have that solitude of mind and so forth. And I think that for many, it might be difficult to obtain that when you're so used to always being like rush, rush, rush. And then finally you're like being forced to be in a space where you're just alone with your thoughts and things. And you think about the things that really matter in the grand scheme of things. And when you look at this painting, it's like where her head is so far from, where everything else is on earth, and I think that's sometimes where we need to be in general, is just kind of above all the nonsense that happens here on earth, and, in touch with our spirituality, and thinking about things that are more intangible, and the the serenity that is shown in this picture that this lady has, or maybe it's not even serenity, but at least she's thinking, and she's just in a good space or in a pensive space. So I don't know, I just found that thought-provoking. And then another painting that I liked, or piece that I liked, was this one is from a while back, October 18th, 2016. And it was something she made for International Day of Women Writers. And she dedicated it to Emily Dickinson. And so I'm more so touched by the words. But one thing that she said, I'm not going to read the whole caption, but one thing she said about Emily Dickinson, who is like a lot of writers, model and inspiration, is that she, even though it says the curious thing about Emily is that even though she admired successful women of her time, she considered selling her poems or exhibiting her art as a way to stoop and pervert her creativity, the eternal thought of the artist. And I thought, wow, that is something that you don't really think about all the time or talk about all the time, but it's kind of true. And I feel like many artists come to that feeling, or creatives, or people who are creating, because everybody can create things. They come to that crossroads of whether they should, let's say they're good at something, and then it's like you see everyone monetizing and making money, and sometimes getting attention based on their talents or their creative endeavors, and you might feel like, well, me too, maybe that would be good for me. But then a lot of times too, you always have to ask yourself, how far are you willing to go to really, get that mainstream success at the price of your creativity. And by selling it, you are putting a price tag on it, when you'll never be able to really pass on to people the meaning that art had for you, you know what I'm saying? Or the writing. Having said that, I have definitely sold my writing before. Not necessarily something from my mind, but I've sold the act of writing. And so I guess to each person it's different. But again, it's hard to really sell something that's from your heart. I've never pitched an essay about myself. When I'm pitching, I'll pitch things about fashion or beauty, because I love those things and love talking about those things. But I think to a certain degree that pigeonholes me, because I'm not coming from I won't say I'm not coming from an authentic place, but I'm not coming from a place where I'm just maybe I'm not coming from a unique place, the editor might feel. So I think definitely sometimes when you're just being true to yourself, that's when all our nuances and unique things come out. But it's hard to put a price tag on those things. And sometimes it's hard to make it something that somebody else would want, So it's just an interesting thing to think about. In terms of art and creativity. And then the last piece I wanted to talk about is this one that she did on August 15th, 2019, dedicated to Patti Smith. And I love this one as well. And it's Patti Smith sitting there and then opening the window to her younger self. I don't know, it's very interesting. And the hand is behind it, so I don't know if her younger self is just peeking through. It's so interesting. But I liked the caption where it talked about men don't age better than women, they're just allowed to age, and how getting old is considered an illness these days. People going all out of their way to stop aging, and how Patti Smith, like a punk rock legend, said in an interview that she was happy that she didn't grow up conventionally pretty when she was younger because she was able to dive deeper into other more interesting matters like her work and not always thinking about her face, And now people think she's so beautiful, but that's true. It's very true, and I think it speaks to a larger discussion. But no one can choose whether or not they're beautiful or not. If you're beautiful, or I'll say no one can choose whether or not they're born in a way that is conventionally beautiful or that the masses would think beautiful. We're all born, we come out, and we don't choose what we look like. We just look like that. And therefore, you can't control how people react either. But being born either conventionally beautiful or just average or not beautiful can all have an interesting effect on one's psyche. And I think it's just an interesting thing to think about how something so out of a person's control can have such a huge impact on the way they think, the way they move through life, and the things they value, and how they end up later in life, and how they interact with others and how they think the world works. All of that can be determined sometimes by just how you were born looking. So I thought it was so interesting. I love this piece, and I love everything Elia does. She's very has strong thoughts and very passionate. So yeah, you can check her out. I'll put her Instagram here, and you should check out her website too. It's eliamervi.com, and let me know your thoughts on those subjects that we talked about. And talk to you next time.